Hello, we are Group 12. Today we'll talk about the Bible Genesis chapter 16, 21, and 24. Here are our group members, Sarah, Skylar, and Nancy. We will introduce the contents according to the chapter. And here is the contents. The first is characters. The second is the birth of Ismael. The third is the birth of Isaac. Number 4, Isaac and Rebecca. And number 5 will be the conclusion. Before we begin, let us introduce the prominent characters. The whole story is centered around Abraham. On the left-hand side of Abraham is Hagar, the maid of Sarah, and they have a child called Ismael. And on the right-hand side of Abraham is his wife, Sarah, and they have a child called Isaac. Isaac had a wife called Rebecca, and they have 2 sons. Okay, now let's come to introduce our chapter. In Genesis 16, we can see that Sarah came pregnant. So she sent Hagar, her maid, to her husband in order to get a baby. Hagar had a boy, and the boy is praised by God. So her mistress lost stature in her eye. Her mistress went to Abraham for help and was replied, "Your maid is in your power. Do to her what you regard as right." And it turns out that being treated badly, she ran away. Lord Angel saw her and asked, "Hagar, maid of Sarah, where are you coming from and where are you going?" She tells him her situation. The Lord Angel said, "Go back to your mistress and submit to her authority. I will make your descendants so numerous and they will be too many to count." She went back and the baby boy was born and named Ismael. In this part, we can see that Abraham is more like a bystander. As for his wife, she plays a much more important role. We can see 3 emotional changes in her decision. She sent her maid to her husband, lost stature in her maid's eyes, and do her right as a master. Hagar is the maid who was sent to be her mistress' surrogate mother. After she was pregnant, she went to be on par with Sarah. As for Ismael, she's the son of Abraham and Hagar. Now we will go to Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm going to do a simple introduction first. In Genesis 21, after many years, Sarah and Abraham finally have their own child as God promised. God said to Abraham that he will have a son at his age of 100 years old, and commanded he must name the boy as Isaac. But Abraham's first son, who was born by the maid, Hagar, seems to be unlucky. Sarah saw her son Isaac was playing with the maid's son Ishmael, and then she thought she had enough with the mother and the son, especially her disrespectful behavior to her. And of course, it's just in Sarah's perspective or something, and she insisted that Abraham had to send Hagar and Ishmael away. God also told him to obey his wife's command. Abraham had no choice but to do it. And God told him there's no need to be sad, because he will bless his son and make the nation for the boy. Next page, please. So we can find that Abraham is a man who has no chance to make a decision when it comes to his family issue. Or we can just say he just has an attitude of indifference to such things. As for Sarah, it seems hard to tolerate Hagar and Ishmael for her, so she demanded her husband send them somewhere else. And Hagar can be considered to be the woman who can't control her own life, though she did eager to get rid of her slave died by her pregnancy. She still failed on it. God also played an important role in this part. He showed his power and authority to plan these characters' lives and bless the children. Now let's move to Nancy's parts.
Hello, I'm Nancy. In Genesis 24, Abraham is getting old. He wants his oldest servant to help his son to find a wife, and the requirement is not among the Canaanites, but from Abraham's native country. Then the servant swears and goes on his way, taking 10 of his master's camels loaded with all kinds of good things from his master. When the servant arrives in the city of Nahor, he uses a special way to find the right person for his little master. The servant prays that God will give him success in this errand. A special way is when he asks a girl for a drink. Please let down your jar that I may have a drink. And she says, drink, and I'll water your camels too. That's the right person he is looking for, and she will be Isaac's wife. As the servant finishes praying, Rebekah appears and does exactly what the servant said. When the servant asks Rebekah for a drink of water, she immediately offers to draw water for his camels as well. When Rebekah finishes watering the camels, the servant gives her gold jewelry and asks her name. She introduces herself and she invites him to spend the night with her family. The servant gratefully worships God, thankful for his faithfulness toward Abraham. Rebekah runs home and tells her family about the guests. Her brother, Laban, comes to welcome the servant and listens to his errand. After Rebekah's family heard the purpose of the servant's errand, and Laban says this is obviously God's doing. Therefore, he agreed that Rebekah become Isaac's wife. The servant gives Rebekah and her family more costly gifts. The next day, the servant urges them to send Rebekah to Canaan without delay. When the family asks Rebekah, she agrees to go with the servant and become Isaac's wife. One day, while Isaac is walking in the field, she sees camels approaching. When Rebekah sees Isaac from a distance, she covers herself with her veil. The servant tells Isaac about his successful errand, and Isaac takes Rebekah as his wife. Next page, please. In this part, for the servant, he just follows Abraham's instructions and takes Rebekah home to be Isaac's wife. As for Isaac, he introduces Rebekah to his mother and marries her. Rebekah became Isaac's wife, and Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. As for Rebekah, she met the servant and acceded to what he wished, then she gets married after, bringing back to Isaac's place. Next page.
Now let us have a quick view of stories. The first picture is Hagar and Ishmael, and the second is Abraham, Sarah, and their son Isaac. And the third picture is the servant and Rebecca.
And this is our criticism. We can find that the main axis of the stories are not around Abraham and God. It says of the personality traits of the three female characters in the stories. They represent the personality traits of different women. Their birth background and personality also affect their behavior in the stories. Next page, please.
Before we end our presentation, we have 2 questions for you. The first one is, what's the purpose of God tells Hagar to return to Sarah in Genesis 16? Next page. And the second question is, what kind of personality in servant's perspective of Rebecca do people need to learn? Here are our references. Thank you for listening.